Oh, hello there. I'm Wyatt, and today I want to talk to you about lead. No, not this lead. I'm talking about this lead. Lead is the 82nd element on the periodic table and a solid at room temperature. It looks something like this. However, today I'm not interested in any of that information. What I am interested in is telling the story of lead's main use as a gasoline additive and how it was eventually removed from all gas stations in the world.
And what are you going to be doing today?
Today we're going to be interviewing an old professor of mine, Carl Kurtz. He's a lead expert. Hopefully I get some more answers today. Hello, I am here with my lead expert, Mr. Carl Kurtz. How are you doing today?
Good. How are you?
I am very well. Now, the question I want to ask you today is why they added lead to gasoline.
Lead was always actually in gasoline a lot of the times back in the day because it was more of a fuel additive to help with the engine, less pinging. They could also have different octane grades that would be much cheaper to allow engines to run better back in the day. So you could have an 87, 89, 91, 94. By adding lead, you could have all those different octanes, but much cheaper, so it's more cheaper for people to use.
I see. And do you know why they stopped adding lead?
Could have been in the 70s? I really don't know.
Well, that's the truth I'm trying to uncover today. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you for having me on your show. I appreciate it.
Did you get all the answers you needed?
I got some, not everything I needed. My lead expert was inconclusive today, but I'm gonna keep digging. It took me days of examining newspapers and textbooks until I finally stumbled upon one article about a World War II chemist named Claire Patterson. Of humble origins, Patterson began his career using the uranium-lead method to find the age of the Earth. Patterson's research posed more difficulties than expected, due to the lead levels being off the charts, even in places where no lead should have been present at all. From there, Patterson became obsessed with learning of the lead around him, and found that lead was used in pipes, paints, glass, household utensils, and even children's toys. However, most importantly, gasoline was the major user of lead, and the oil industry posed to be a majestic beast against Patterson's pursuit. The man who instrumented the struggle against Patterson was a pathologist by the name of Robert Cahot, who was hired by General Motors with the goal of providing the public that the levels of lead in the atmosphere were completely safe and that the gasoline companies were to be exonerated from any punishments. This is where our story gets much darker, as Cahot became the sole medical expert on toxicology of lead for over 40 years and was able to consistently sway the public's opinion to show that lead was much safer than it really was by feeding them misinformation from tests and results that were inconclusive or sometimes even were against Cahot. But he would misinform the public in order to exonerate lead and prove that it was not harmful. As we now know, overexposure to lead can lead to mental disabilities and comas and even death. However, at the time, this was not public knowledge, and Patterson had dedicated his life to traveling the world and inspecting lead concentrations, only to find that Cahot had been lying the entire time. Patterson's groundbreaking discovery proved that the concentrations of lead in the atmosphere was over 1,000 times the natural levels, and in the human body itself, it was over 600 times the normal level. After years of research, Patterson finally published his work in Nature magazine, a major environmental health magazine at the time. However, his work was continuously ignored and ridiculed by his colleagues for years. The public, too, sided with Cahot and General Motors, and it wasn't until 1976 when the Environmental Protection Agency mandated a reduction on the levels of lead in gasoline. However, this was only seen as a precautionary measure by the EPA, and Patterson's data was not accepted until the late 1980s, when the EPA performed tests that perfectly aligned with Patterson's earlier findings. Patterson passed away just 2 weeks before the final removal of all lead from gasoline stations in the United States, taking place on December 31st of 1995. However, in the midst of his advocacy for the removal of lead from gasoline, Patterson was able to achieve his initial goal of finding the age of the Earth. He was able to date Earth to be 4.5 billion years old, which is still widely accepted by scientists to this day. Patterson was able to complete his two biggest goals in life, and in doing so is responsible for the saving of millions of lives from lead poisoning.